Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second day of our conference, Professional Communication and Translation Studies. We will open this morning with a panel discussion on the status of training programs for easy-to-read validators and facilitators in Europe. The panelists, I shall very briefly introduce them because they will introduce themselves. Starting with Oscar Garcia Munoz from Madrid, Spain, Gabriele Sauberer from Austria, Carlo Eugeni Francesca Bleve from Italy, Angela Cotoară, Romania, Tatiana Knap, Slovenia, Rocio Bernabé from Germany, and our team from Timisoara, Simona, Marcela, Ana Maria, and myself. The structure of our panel: in the first part, we will talk about, very briefly, we'll introduce the project. Oscar will talk about the professional training for easy-to-read facilitators and validators. Then our team will talk about a common methodological framework for surveying validators and facilitators of easy-to-read. Next, all panelists will present the status of training programs for easy-to-read validators and facilitators in Europe. And in the end of our presentation, we shall also give some future research directions, main outcomes, and expected results. I would like now to give the floor to Oscar Garcia Munoz from Plena Inclusión Madrid for his presentation. Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you very much, Daniel, and thank you all for your attendance to this conference. I will share my screen with you just to introduce briefly the project Train2validate, in which we seven partners are involved in order to create this professional training for facilitators and validators in easy-to-read. So, if we just consider the full easy-to-read process, then we have the writers, they have the guidelines. We know broadly that usually we apply the guidelines from Inclusion Europe or the IFLA. And then we have the users and supporters that take part in the process, the validators and facilitators, as we usually are known, and they do the assessment and testing of the texts. Then there are quite a few problems about how to certificate their training. How? Because usually they are trained to do this job. They are not people that just come to a session, to working session, reading the text and evaluating it just as a user, a typical user, but they have also some kind of training. Then we need a recognition of them as a part of the process, and it is already done. Inclusion Europe and the Spanish standard and the forthcoming standard in Germany are doing that, and also the forthcoming ISO standard are doing that. They say that facilitators and validators are part of the process. Then let's go with the training process, and that's the aim of Train2validate as Erasmus project. So, and this is the main goal: the creation of new specific professional profiles for the production of easy-to-read materials. For these both roles, we understand that there are other projects that are working on the same aim, but with writers or translators or adapters. The name is still sometimes on discussion. But in this way, we are talking about the end users and the supporters, how to do it professionally, this assessment of easy-to-read texts. And Train2validate have 5 specific objectives. First of all, the consideration that validators and facilitators are a profession. They should become professionalized. Then we would like to do this professionalization as a certificate, not just a course, a non-formal study, but with a certification scheme. And that's we are working with ECQA as one of our partners. Of course, the final aim is the increase of quality of ETR production. Why? Because we would like that it is clear that it is different when an easy-to-read text has been done with and without facilitators and validators. We would like to also provide with an European view for the whole project so that our scheme will be developed in Europe. And then we also would like to obtain a social and sectorial recognition of easy to read, mainly applying the participation of validators and facilitators. Our global results are 6 reports, plus open educational resources, what is called in the Erasmus terminology intellectual outputs, 5 dissemination events, and we would like to develop a strong communication to make clear and also spread the results with different channels, associated partners, and stakeholders network. And the project will be developed until August 2023, around 3 years, and we expect to develop properly these 6 results and presenting them in the different events. Partnership, we are 7 partners, 3 universities from Italy, Germany, and Romania, and 3 NGOs from also Romania, Slovenia, and Spain, and the certifier, the ECQA. We consider that this perfect merge because we have the knowledge from the universities, the knowledge from people who apply the easy to read on place, and the certification partner in order to create properly this final result. So thank you very much, Daniel. Then I go back to you.
Thank you very much, Oscar, for this introduction to the project you initiated. Thank you once again for inviting us to be a partner. We will continue now with the second point on our agenda, developing a common methodological framework for surveying validators and facilitators of easy to read. This action basically in the project was coordinated by our university together, and we implemented together with all the project partners. The research team includes Anna Maria Chieni, Marcela Farcasciu, Simona Shimon, and myself. The main activities of this research activity included the creation of a repository with relevant materials and literature in the field. All project partners contributed with relevant support materials, including books, materials from several projects, and we created an online repository, which we all use during our project. Then we set up a database of procurers. We use here the terminology of the European Union, but procurers refers to writers, publishing houses, NGOs, and organizations that publish easy-to-read and validation contents. This database is it's very useful, and it's created, so to speak, at European level. We then created a survey in English and all project languages. The survey was created from scratch, basically. We all contributed to its creation. And then we conducted it in all the countries of the project partners. We disseminated it, we gathered the results, we compiled answers, and we drafted interim reports. in all the project languages and English. Since this it's an ongoing activity, we are currently at the stage when we are writing the final report, and we will very soon publish it and disseminate it in a what we call a multiplier event. So I will take this opportunity to invite all our participants in the conference and in our panel to take part in the multiplier event, which will take place at the end of May. We will send invites by email. Some of the results, as I said, we have a database which is very useful of 155 procurers in all the countries of our project. We sent 120 invitations, and we managed to collect 350 answers to our survey, which then have been analyzed by all the partners. Very briefly, this is the structure of our survey. In the introductory part, the surveys had to fill in a personal statement. They could read some facts about the project. We had to let them know the estimate time of completion and the contact persons in case they needed additional information. After the demographic profile, we focused on general education and training, then specific education and training in easy to read, also on current activity and skills. All in all, there were around 50 questions, which took about 15 minutes to complete. In the next part of our panel, we will present the main results of the survey so that we have a clear view on the status of training programs for easy-to-read validators and facilitators in Europe. And we will continue with Spain. Oscar, you are invited to take the floor and share with us the main results of the survey.
Sorry, I muted my mic. Then I share again my screen. Yes, these are the preliminary results for Spain of this survey that we have together conducted in the Train2validate project. I will share with you very briefly the main results, main discoveries. Then the global results from Spain, we have 175 answers. Around 2/3 of the answers were women, which is consistent with the structure of the organizations that have declared their origin, because they are usually associations, foundations that are working with people with intellectual or learning disabilities, and this kind of organizations have usually more women in their staff. What refers to the training experience, the majority have some kind of training, but as you see, all of them are in informal ways. I remember that the university courses are around 7% of the answers, so it's quite little, the number of them. And what refers to the fields in which they have been trained, 76% are about validation, and the other is about some kind of working with text, writing, translation, or proofreading. About the courses, about the training activities that they found more useful, the majority talk about the typical, more practical exercises, text analysis, and also one of the most checked was internships, because all of these answers has been under questions with several possibilities of answers, not just one. And lectures are one of the lowest results. I mean, the traditional way of teaching is not mentioned as the best one. Surprisingly, 42% of people had no handbook in these training courses. And then it's something that we should take into account, because we need then some kind of development in this way. And the time of training, 40% answered less than 20 hours and 31% between 20 and 40 hours, which is quite a lot if we consider the current dimension of this kind of trainings. And finally, what refers to this whole comment of the global results, the work experience, 76% say they dedicated part-time to easy to read. 59% are not paid, which is very relevant about the consideration of this profession. 62% say that they have experience between 1 and 5 years. In some kind is a bit long, because easy to read has not so long history. And 74% speak about that they dedicate between 1 and 8 hours a week. If we take into account validators, then we receive, from these 175 answers, we receive 80 answers. The dimension is 50-50% between women and men. And then we're speaking about users, final users that have been trained to read and prove the comprehension of these easy-to-read texts. Then most of them have been trained. The experience is quite long. In some of them, 57% answered more than 20 publications, and they work between 2 and 3 hours a day, more than a half people, so 52%. So they dedicate a very important part of time working in easy to read. And then what refers to the organization of the sessions, they say mostly that they work in team with other validators and with facilitator, the list of them with the writer, and the groups created 74% speak about that they have that the validators are chosen by others, usually the facilitator, but 30% speak that they choose their own team in which they are working with, and 76% use guidelines, mainly the Spanish ones from the Spanish standard, but also 49% European from Inclusion Europe. And finally, from facilitators, people who are supporters of validators in the working sessions, we gathered 51 answers. Here you see the difference between women and men. It's 80% women, as I said, consistently with the typical structure of the staff in associations and foundations. The experience is 69, have training, and the former experience is usually trainer, also consistent with the typical organization structure and activities of this kind of organizations, foundations, associations. So, and the current experience, they've said 41%, they have experience in more than 10 projects of publications with easy to read, which is also some experience, some interesting experience. And the current experience, apart from facilitator, 82% say that they do translations in easy to read. So they process also the text, they write text. And what refers concerning the validation process, I would highlight the size of the team. 50% round is between 2 and 4 people, 43%, 5 or more people doing the validation. The relationship with the translators, usually write a report, not face-to-face meeting. The writers send back the updated version, and they do a second validation. The group do a second validation to obtain the final results. Other relevant information are that 74% use traditional work management tools, calendars, and usually they do at the place, at the room, and 72% use facilitation strategies. So these are briefly the main results from Spain. What concerning the survey, I think that we have very relevant, interesting details to develop more, not only in the final research from the report that we are going to publish at the end of this part of the period, but also to develop the next steps. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Oscar, for this very comprehensive presentation. We will continue now with the situation in Germany. Rocio, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'll share my screen. Can you see it? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So I would like to present main results from the data collected in the German version of the survey. We had altogether 15 answers. First, I'll start with some demographic information. 80% of the participants lived in Germany, whereas the others were in Hungary, Switzerland, and Austria. The gender distribution was 60% female, similar actually to the Spanish results. 60% were female, 27% male. One person preferred not to answer this question, and one person marked other. As for the age of respondents, we see two main groups, young people between 21 and 30 years old, and then people from 41 upwards. We see, according to the graphic, we could assume that easy to read is becoming a more interesting profile or job for younger persons. As for their job profile, 13% work as validators. I cannot see the other one. Wait a minute. 47% as facilitators, which make up 7 persons, and other profiles. 40% under other. We have students, researchers, and freelancers. As for the type of employment, 27% work as volunteers and are not paid for the job. 40% work part-time, meaning part of the income comes from another sort of job, and 33% work full-time in easy to read. We asked them what tasks are they familiar with, and creating, adapting, and proofreading, revising text in easy to read were chosen by all respondents, which might give us a hint that these tasks or skills are transversal to all profiles. As for their training backgrounds, 67% of them had undergone training. In our case, this is different to the Spanish one. 60% were the courses were university courses, compared to 50% workshops and 30% self-taught. Interestingly here, the participants who undertook university courses, both of them actually had undertaken as well an internship. We asked them as well what sort of tasks and tools were more helpful for them during training. Here again, practical exercises and tasks, working with expert, collaborative learning, as we see, and class discussions. So less theoretical and more practical exercises and tasks. As for the use of guidelines, they use guidelines, and in 80% of the cases, and in the German survey, they specify they use national guidelines. So now I wanted to put a focus on the validators and facilitators. The 2 validators expressed that they hadn't undergone any kind of training, and the facilitators, 71%, didn't either. Only 29% of them had undergone training before their profession. I think this 71% for me relates to the fact that we had difficulties finding a term in German for naming the profession facilitators. For validators was no problem, Prüfer. Facilitators was difficult. Some terms that are in use are Prüfassistent, Prüfassistentin. Then we thought about Prüfmoderatoren oder Prüfkoordinatoren. So as for the knowledge and skills that these profiles should have, validators, in the case of validators, interpersonal skills such as working in teams had the highest number of mentions, followed by personal skills such as reading skills and active listening, and then text-related skills such as knowledge about multimodal communication and of course the principles of guidelines, but as well as text type, what characteristics of the different text types. Similarly, with the facilitators, the skills with the higher rates or number of mentions were knowledge about target users and their needs and about easy to read guidelines, etc., followed by personal skills, organizational time management, then again text-related skills, multimodal knowledge about multimodal communication and text types, and then more procedural skills such as basic knowledge about how validation it is, the different steps, mediation and communication strategies. This was also seen in the Spanish one, and then for the tools, computer skills. Lastly, we asked them about a tentative duration of training, and for validators, and it was suggested 2 different courses, one a basic one of 20 to 40 hours and a more advanced one of 20 to 40, and for facilitators, 40 to 60 hours of training. The last question, participants were asked if they would like to undergo training that leads to a certificate, and 53% said that that was very likely. They were very likely to be happy to attend such a course or such a training. 27% were not sure, and 20% said they were not interested in a certificate. So that's it. That's the overview from the responses in Germany. I think many of them correlate with the Spanish one, but some other might be only specific of their country. I think it would be it's going to be very interesting to consolidate all the answers and when we create the map. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Rocio. As we said at the beginning of our panel, we will organize a Q&A session at the end of the presentations. So now we'll continue with the situation in Italy. Carlo and Francesca, you have the floor.
Yes, good morning. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you see it? Okay, so good morning also on behalf of Carlo and on behalf of the whole High School of Translators and Interpreters at PISA. So I'm going to analyze the global results that we collected through the survey. But before this, let me say that we have sent the survey to selected people only by focusing on partners that had already collaborated with the ECQA project, which is a recent European project about easy to read. And I'm going to start by giving you some information about the demographic profile of the participants. They all live in Italy, and their mother tongue is Italian, except for one participant whose mother tongue was Spanish. And among the participants who completed the survey, 33 were women and 8 were men, which confirms what Oscar has just said about women predominating in this easy to read word. And also 2 participants reported to use easy to read language to access contents because they had a stroke and they were left with aphasia. If we move on to the section concerning education and training in easy to read, as you can see, only 5 participants received training related to easy to read, and 2 of them attended university courses, and the other participants selected different options, as for instance, vocational courses or workshop and so on. Two of them specified that before having stroke, they were not familiar at all with any kind of easy-to-read content. Also, two other participants specified that they would have liked to be trained in other fields related to easy-to-read content, as for instance, audiovisual translation and also audio description. Another participant specified that he would have liked to be trained to adapt digital content into easy-to-read content. And as you can see, only 3 participants received handbooks as a training material. And among these 3, only one specified the handbook, which is the Italian version of European standards for making information easy to read and understand. In the section concerning the current work of participants, we have got several answers, but they generally work for not-for-profit organizations or at university or research institution. However, none of them work full-time in easy to read, and 2 of them work as volunteers and the other 4 work as part-time as experts, but none of them is paid for their easy to read work. Also, 12 participants collaborate with or work for associations for people with disabilities, be they intellectual, sensory, age-related, or reading-related. So now we will move on to results from validators and facilitators. And we only collected 1 answer, as none of the participants works as a validator, and only 1 participant reported to be a trained facilitator. The facilitator reported to produce, write, and translate easy-to-read content and has validated between 5 and 10 validation projects in collaboration with other validators. And they specified that as strategies and tools used for sessions, they use dedicated software and reference work, but also a dimmer to show the text that has to be translated on a wall. The final section about the skills that validators and facilitators should have shows that all participants agree on the skills and competencies for validators and facilitators despite the different background. And only 17 of the among the participants would enroll such a program to become a validator or facilitator, but 22 of them would recommend such a program. So to conclude, despite the efforts and the progresses made thanks to the European funded EASY project, the answers obtained and collected through this survey show that in Italy, the emerging field of easy-to-read content is still unknown, largely unknown and underestimated. And this is due to several factors, like, for instance, the lack of official guidelines and lack of academic research and institution, but also to the fact that all people who work in this field are volunteers. And this is a consequence also of a lack of social recognition of the profession. And we really look forward to reaching this goal through the Train2validate project and other similar projects that put together the practices and competencies from so many countries and people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francesca and Carlo. We will continue now with the situation in Romania. As Oscar said before, in Romania we are 2 partners, our university and Fundația Profesional from Târgu Mureș, represented by Angela Cotoara. Together, we managed to set up a database consisting of 40 procurers, that is, writers, publishing houses, NGOs, or organizations that are involved in easy-to-read publication and validation. And we received 48 answers. I will skip this part because you are already familiar with the structure of the survey, and I will only present the most relevant results. Concerning the age, the demographic profile, so the age of the persons who answered, we noticed that almost half of the participants in the survey are between 41 and 50 years old. A great majority, almost 84% of the people who answered did not receive any training related to easy to read, which is very relevant for us and shows once again the importance of our project and of our results. Concerning the education and training in easy to read, there were some people who did receive some education, and they took part in some workshops, or they took part in some university courses. Only 8 people from the people who answered did receive such training. Concerning the content they are familiar with, most of them are familiar with printed content, and some of them are familiar with digital content or audiovisual content. None of the participants received any kind of guides or guidelines for their training. Again, this is a very relevant result for our project. Most of the people who answered are working in a public institution. That means almost 30%. And most of their current activity is done on a volunteering basis, 70%, for which they do not receive any kind of payment. So 75% of the people who answered do not receive any kind of payment for the work they are doing. Only some of the people who answered are trained validators. That means 87% of the total number of 8 answers. And 5 persons are trained facilitators. Concerning the dimension of the validation team, most the people answered that it consists of 2 to 4 persons. And in some of the cases, the validation team consists of 1. It's not a team, but usually one person is doing the validation, and in some cases 2 persons. Concerning the skills they need to validate, here the answers are rather balanced. They said that they need reading skills, listening skills, and teamwork. The same for validation. A great majority of the people consider that they need further training, so 90%. And we will continue now with the results in Slovenia.
Thank you, Daniel. I will now try to share the screen. Can you see it? Okay. So for today, I only selected a few of the results that might be important or interesting for today's panel. And as for Slovenia, I'm sorry. Okay, we managed to get 58 answers, which is a lot for us. If I give a little background, when we started 10 years ago, speaking about easy to read in Slovenia, we would get none. And perhaps for comparison, like when we started to work to cooperate on the EASY project 3 years ago, we would perhaps get 50% of those answers in a similar survey. 18 people who answered the survey declared themselves as validators. 17 of them were facilitators. One said that they were both, and 22 people said that they were neither, but then specified later in the survey that they are either teachers or writers of easy-to-read texts, and so on. As far as gender is concerned, this is, it looks like in Slovenia, this is quite strongly female predominated area, and all of the except for one, all of the male gender fall under the validators. There are almost no facilitators of male gender that answered our survey. When we asked them whether were they trained or not, it was surprising that 71% of them answered yes, and only 29% of them answered no. Mind you, those are both facilitators and validators. And when we asked them more in-depth questions, we found out that most of those trainings came from a project that we carried out a couple of years ago, and that particular training was also named later. We asked them, what type of training have you received? The big majority said that they have attended workshops, and these are the workshops that I already mentioned. And many of them received in-house training at the company, in the institution. Some people are starting to attend university courses. We have one in Slovenia as regards easy to read, and then there are some other answers that are not high in number. We also, I thought I managed to retrieve a picture from one of the trainings for both facilitators and validators that was mostly mentioned in this survey. So I thought it would be interesting to show this result. What are you familiar with? Most of the people are familiar with adapting, editing, translating texts into easy to read, and also validating and creating and writing. Also proofreading and revising was mentioned, and use of dedicated software and hardware was not so strong in this answer. It only consisted of 3 answers. The one question that wasn't specifically addressed yet today was, what are the key components of a training program as according to the people who answered the survey? We asked them this: what do you think? What do we need in order to have a successful training program? And what the people said was, the most important thing in their opinion is existence of experienced validators and facilitators as lecturers. The second most answered was existence of diversified materials for applications, and then existence of multi-level training programs, existence of published guidelines, handbooks, and then an adequate number of hours. A little bit lower in the answers was existence of a basic universally accepted curriculum. So that was not so important to them, but somewhat important still. And existence of some sort of recognition like certificate or diploma was also somewhat important. The least important, as scaled in this question, was existence of professional trainers. So the people mainly said that the experienced validators and facilitators should teach those training programs. So this is from my part very briefly, and in-depth results will be available in the report, of course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. I will show you now the website of our project. As you see, we have a section for the survey. And the survey was created in all the languages of our project partners. In addition, we have also created an English version of the survey for those surveyees who wanted to take the English survey. But we will only process in our research the results obtained in our project languages and analyze the English results as to their relevance for our research. We will continue now with the presentation of the results we obtained in the English language survey. The presentation will be given by Angela Cotoara. Angela, microphone. We have 2 minutes for the presentation of the results in the English survey. Angela, your mic is not on. We can't hear you. All right. Yes, thank you.
All right. So this survey in English, I'm going to present it in a hurry because our host is very strict with the time. So I have selected some interesting results, even if it isn't very significant from the scientific point of view. We've got 16 respondents from all over the world, I can say, because Canada is also present. So here I am going to show you that there are 16 responses from 12 countries. It is very interesting that 5 of the answers there are from Romania, and they belong to some participants in a project initiated by an association called Diverse, which is going to be one of our associated partners. And this easy to read method has been used for the Roma community in our region. I live in Transylvania, and I don't know why Giurgiu and Transylvania, these 2 regions which are kind of far away one from the other, has the most populated Roma community. So it is something interesting in this respect. There is only one respondent from Finland, and she made very interesting comments, and she is the only validator from all the people who answered to this survey in English. The age says that, okay, sorry. So here is the age. I think it says that the most, in terms of gender, the most answers were women. So this is also very interesting because it is obvious that in non-profit organizations and sometimes in university, for getting a degree, women are in a majority. Going to the respondents' education, we can also see that 75.1% so that people with higher education are concerned with easy to read method. Going further to which Erasmus Plus category our project should belong, higher education is indeed the most suitable answer. About the skills improvement, we can also say that they please select all the that apply. So we can also say that reading literature and assisting or the workshops is the most common answer. Okay, only the Finnish respondent seems to be a validator from all the 16 respondents. The demand for training is consistent, which shows that our project has great importance in this domain, and its purposes and aims are well chosen, and we are going to do a great job when we finish this. Types of training, it isn't a certain training, I mean a formal one, only attending workshops or some experts are self-taught and something like this. So there isn't any specific training. When we wanted to know where they work, so university and NGOs will get to 62.5%. So the intellectual and reading related disabilities are the most approached topic for easy to read content. If we ask about their former profession or their main profession, apart from easy to read volunteers, we discovered that they are translators, teachers, and researchers. And I think that in this project we are the same. If we ask ourselves or the respondents if a certified profession in easy to read is going to be interesting, so I think that the fact that they are 68.8% volunteers, this will give them responsibility and a little bit of self-confidence in what they do. Here I put some responders' comments, and I've got one from the Finnish respondent. She says, I am the person in charge of the course on Easy Finnish at our university. And the other one said, I love that you are doing this survey. Talking about training program for validators and facilitators. So we can see the figures very clearly, and I don't think that they are different from what our partners had already told us. So I thank you, and I'm sorry that I was in a hurry to present, but I was afraid not to being stopped. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela. We will continue now with our next point on the agenda. Oscar and Gabriele will make a very brief summary and present some future research directions.
Thank you, Daniel. We are almost coming to the end. Just to sum up, what are the next steps? Well, the expected results are actually step-by-step First of all, this common methodological framework from the survey, and from this survey and other sources, we are building up the following steps. First of all, the skills cards for both facilitators and validators to develop the specific competences and abilities. Then the modular curriculum, also with teaching recommendation and guidelines, because the students will be, at least for validators, people with learning intellectual disabilities or reading difficulties. So we have to adapt the teaching strategies. Then we will create the open educational resources, and we will check and evaluate if they work or not, because we are consistent with the ideology, so to say, of the project. Because if we are talking about easy to read and validators, it has no sense if we don't validate and assess the open educational resources. And then we will explore the possible certifications or the strategies to develop some kind of degrees. But in any case, we will build all these steps under the scheme from ECQA. So it is quite relevant that independently from the circumstances of each country, the final result will be a scheme of certificate professional validators and facilitator status. So next steps, in the next 2 months, we will publish the survey and we will disseminate the results on an event on 26th May. And then we also build then nextly the skills card. And finally, we would like to cooperate with associated partners, stakeholders, and current validators and facilitators to enrich all their results in this final scheme, because we consider that the participation will be very relevant for the final results of this project. So, Gabriel.
Thank you very much. I have good news for you today. First of all, what is ECQA? It stands for European Certification and Qualification Association, and I have the honor to be a vice president of ECQA. And I have good news for you. Accessibility and inclusion have become megatrends in our societies, in particular, of course, in North America and in the European Union. Digital accessibility is meant to enable all citizens and all people living in member states of the EU to access information and content in the internet. We have even a European standard about digital accessibility, the EN 301549 standard, based on the International Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, the so-called WCAG. So for the first time, people with disabilities are considered as experts who can be hired for assessment and consultancy related to accessibility and inclusion. For the first time, there are European certificates to confirm that people with disabilities and all those who work in the field of accessibility and inclusion are competent and qualified to do their jobs and job roles at European level. So no more deficit thinking here, but appreciation for qualified jobs and recognition of professionals in the field of accessibility and inclusion. I think this is really worth stressing and celebrating. And ECQA, the European Certification and Qualification Association, currently is in the wonderful position to be involved in a cluster of accessibility projects. Most of them are Erasmus Plus project, but not all. And there are very interesting job roles and certificates I would like to briefly make you familiar with. So the first, our project Train2validate will come up with 2 certificates, the ECQA certified easy to read validator and the easy to read facilitator. Then there's another one with a highly interesting certificate for all of us. It's the Impact project led by a French company which has been founded by people with disabilities and is run by people with disabilities. the job role here is ECQA certified digital accessibility educator. It's based on that European standard about digital accessibility I mentioned. Then we have the LTA, the Live Text Access project with STI and Rotheo as coordinator, developing ECQA certified intralingual real-time subtitler, Respeak and Velotypist certificates. And then we have some very new and some older, already accomplished project. I start with that, with the ACT project, accessible culture and training. It's a very broad skill card. Again, 2 certificates emerging from that, the ECQA certified accessibility manager and the ECQA certified accessibility coordinator, which is venue based. Then we have a very new, not yet started, also with a Canadian partner, the IDEA project, implementing a digital e-learning alternative. And the Canadian partner is the largest distance learning university actually in Canada. And the future certificate will be ECQA certified trainer in inclusive distance learning. So again, all the content, all the training materials, all the platform facilities will be accessible for inclusive learning. And last but not least, which might sound strange for you, why a job role of an ECQA certified European green entrepreneur and his or her trainer, the ECQA certified refugee entrepreneurship trainer in green economy. What has that to do with accessibility? There we have, first of all, we have again, inclusive and accessible training material and platforms, so digital accessibility but also easy to read. Yeah? Why? Because when people who come to a country as newcomers or refugees, of course their language skills are very limited in most of the cases from our experience, and they're easy to read. Is the ideal method to combine, to combine the benefit for audiences. So we have an audience with reading or learning disabilities, and at the same time we support people with low or very limited language skills, because for them it's very valuable, to have everything, every content and information provided in easy to read language. So this was the good news from ECQA. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. Thank you very much, Oscar. As Oscar mentioned, we will organize an online conference on May 26th, in 2 months, basically, and we will offer open access. It will be a one-day conference with 4 confirmed plenary speakers, and we will present in more detail the results of our projects. And you are of course all invited. We will also issue digital certificates of attendance. I know that we ran out of time, but let us see if there are some questions, some comments. I think that we can still stay in this panel for 5 more minutes, because the other conference tracks have already started at 10:30. So if there are questions or comments, we will take them in the next 5 minutes. You know the joke, everything was very clear, right? There are no.
We did it in easy to read.
Yeah, it Yes, so thank you once again on behalf of my colleagues, of the project partners, for attending this panel. We really look forward to advancing our research in this project and to sharing the results of our activities with you. As I said, you are all more than welcome to visit the project website. There is even a Twitter page. You may find us on LinkedIn as well. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to contact any of the project participants to the email addresses you may find in the conference program, or contact us directly via the project website. Thank you once again for your presentations. Thank you very much for your attendance, and let us continue with the conference because we have a full day ahead of us.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.